Okay, good morning. So now we're going to start Siman Rishon Gimel Sif Beis. We finished the very long Sif Aleph, and Aleph is talking about the Issa of Shehir, maintaining a pot on an uncovered flame. That was all of Sif Aleph. Now, Sif Beis, we're going to talk about Chazara. Chazara means, Chazal say, that you can't take a pot off the blech and then put it back on unless you fulfilled certain conditions, and this is quite lemaisa. So the example, if we'll talk about if Friday night, especially in the long winter, late at night you want to have chulent. That's a regular occurrence in our house. That on Friday they want to have chulent. So can you take the chulent off the blech and serve some chulent? And the answer is you can, but you've got to make sure there are 5 conditions fulfilled. So my kids know the 5 conditions, because in the early days I used to tell them, yes, you can take the chulent, but what are the 5 conditions? So we'll talk about these 5 conditions in a moment. Says the Machaba, Kira, Shehi Gerufa v'Katuma. If you've got a kira, an oven, which is garaf v'katum, which means that you've taken out, garaf means you've taken out all the coals from the oven, v'katum means or you've put ash on the coals, which is the modern equivalent is you've got a blech, or in the crock pot you've got the silver foil, the aluminum lining. V'not l'hakader milan, you take the pot from this kira. Afilu b'Shabbos, even on Shabbos, mutar lahachzira, you are allowed to put it back on. Kolzman shehi reisachas, so long as it's still hot. That's number 1. V'oida b'yodai, and you're still holding it. The Ramah adds. Then also v'lo nichal gabi karka, you haven't put it on the floor. Then the Ramah adds, v'dai telachzir, and your intention is to put it back. When you take it off, it's not just you intend to take and then put it back on. V'dafka al gabo, putting it on the kira. V'leteicha, also putting it in a kira, in an oven. That is a problem, because there's a problem of mechsek and mavashel. People, the onlooker, might think you're cooking on Shabbos by putting something into the oven. Of a tanur, and nowadays our ovens have got a din of a kira, and therefore putting something lechatchila into the oven is a problem. Of a tanur also lahachza afilu garfakatim. A tanur, which remember we spoke about, is a higher heat oven. Even if it's garfakatim, is a problem, because you can do bishul in that situation. And so too a kupach, which is a single stove oven, if you've fueled it with gefes and eitzim, also gets very hot. Another criteria is it's got to be mevushal kol tzarchai. That means the chulent that you're putting back on has got to be fully cooked. What's that? Yeah, there's 2 separate things.
Separate things?
Yeah, because you can have mevushal kol tzarchai, but it's cold.
What? Sorry?
You can have mevushal kol tzarchai, but it's cold. Yeah, it's got to be hot and it's got to be fully cooked, well spotted. Yeah, and va'oz muta lachazira afil lakira. Then you can put it back even to a different kira. Avlim leni special kol tzarchai also afil kira. But if it's not fully cooked, then you can't put it back even to the same oven. So we're going to stop there and do the Mishnah Berurah, and we'll do the rest of this sif tomorrow. But let's just clarify. So you've got 5 conditions mentioned so far. This is the order to remember them. Number 1, again, you're taking chulent Friday night, and you want to spoon out a few portions, and then you want to put it back onto the blech, or the crock pot, or whatever it is. So 5 conditions. Number 1, it's got to be gar for cotton, which means back in the day the coals were removed, or you put ash on the coals, which the equivalent nowadays is that you've got to have lined the blech, or you put a blech on the gas, or in the crock pot terminology, you've put a silver foil, the aluminum foil, in between the heating element and the crock pot. That's number 1. That's gar for cotton. Number 2, it's mevushal kol tzarchai. That means the chulent is fully cooked. Number 3, oidei cham. It's got to be resachas. It's still got to be hot. Number 4, oidei biyodei. You've got to actually hold on to it. And number 5, daite lahachse. Now we're going to see in the Mishnah Berurah coming up that the first 3 are critical. They're essential. It's got to have gar for cotton. It's got to be fully cooked, and it's got to be still warm, which we'll see exactly what that means. But conditions number 4 and 5, i.e. daite lahachse and oidei biyodei, if b'di'evet, if b'shas hatchag, you didn't do that, you took it off and you forgot to have the intention to put it back on, then it's not fatal. Okay, that's really what emerges from today. Okay, let's do the Mishnah Berurah. Sif Katan Nun Beis. She grufa v'katuma. The kira that we're talking about is going to be gar v'katum. Avol. Ein gar v'katum also, but if there's no blech on it, or there's no silver foil lining, it's not gar for kotzim. Also, afidu mistamik virala, even if by putting it back on it will deteriorate further. V'chein betanur afidu gar for kotzim, and also a tanur. The tanur of the times of Chazal, which is much hotter than the kira, which is the equivalent of our ovens, even if it's not, even if it is gar for kotzim. Afidu b'Shabbos. Don't say that we're talking about where you take it out, you take it off the blech on erev Shabbos and you put it back on erev Shabbos, before close to Shabbos. You can take it off the blech even on Shabbos gufa, afidu come upon him, and even several times. You know, it's a very good chillent. You want to take it off and on several times on Friday night or Shabbos morning or whatever. Kol's man shirisachas. The next condition was it's got to be hot. Prat zeh ein adoim lekonan niskar b'siv zeh. The other, this detail is not quite the same as all the others. Why? To bohematam, with regard to the other reasons, i.e., gar for kotzim and things like that, to leitir chachom chazara ki b'ofen zeh. They require those conditions. Avol b'zeh hatam, the criteria of oider esachas is to kimishen istalik mersichosa. Once the thing has cooled down, the hainu she'ein hayatzeledus by. Okay, very important. That's the criteria. Yatzeledus by. Yebei shuv issa bishul. There is a new issa of bishul. Or kodlekam b'simen shinu chesiv dalet. Or lefima sheposek harmo sham sif tezvav baga nagu lahakel ministan legamrei. We are noyeg that unless it's properly cooled down, then it's considered a derisachas, and we can put it back on. We can do chazara again. So it's got to be mamish of cool down.
The Yatzeledus is maybe good for cholent, but for salmon, let's say, that's not right. So it could be cooler than that.
Right.
And when it's on the heat, you take it off, and it's definitely less. It was altogether.
Right. So long as Eleni is standing in the gamre, you're going to be okay. Yeah. Okay. Next condition, Siv Katan Nun Hey, Oida Biyada is still in your hand. You have not removed your hand from it at Shashi Achzirena. So again, in our house on a Friday night, we've got the oven gloves. We'll take the crock pot out of the thing, and I tell the kids, remember the conditions. Gara for cotton, yeah, there's a blech there's a silver lining on between the heating element and the crock pot. So tick box number 1. Number 2, is it Mavishal Kotzorcha? Yes, it is. It's cooked. Number 3, is it Oidecham? Absolutely. Number 4, I'm holding it the whole time. So I'm taking it off. I'm holding it. So with one hand, I take the lid off, and I can spoon out the contents of the chulent, but I'm constantly holding it. So I'm fulfilling that condition. And condition number 5 is Daitel Hachzir. Yeah, I intend to put it back on. So I've fulfilled my 5 conditions. No problem. So yeah, it says the Mishnah Berurah Nun Hey va'oida biyada rotzlem shlei heisir hakader miyada me'eis netilasam and akira ad shash yachzir. I'm not letting go of it until the moment I put it back on. That excludes if I put it down on a bed, or a safsal or a bench for chadayim elazeh bentayim. Have a kameid she'nicha al gabi karka bentayim is if I put it on the ground, which is going to be fatal. V'zeh also l'kulam, because everyone agrees if you put it on the ground in between, you've lost it. To botla lo hashia rishona, because it's not connected anymore to the original sort of taking it off. V'shuv k'shemachzom anicha al gabi akira have lo kamoshev lachatchila. It's as if I'm doing it initially. It's like a new nesina al gabi akira b'Shabbos, and that's bad news. V'chom le'tira lechazara. All the Chacham allowed was to put it back with the conditions. But you can't initially put it on, and once you put it on the ground, then you've sort of cut, and you've got it's like a nesina lechatchila. Even if it's fully cooked, and there's no issa of bishul, because if it's cooked, it's cooked. Since you're putting it in a place where you regularly cook, it looks that the onlooker will think you're cooking initially on Shabbos. Okay, next one, nunvav daitel achzira hatam gam ken kanal. If your intention is to put it back, then it's still connected to the initial act where you've taken it off and you intend to put it back on. You put it there on Erev Shabbos, and you take it off and you want to put it back on before it gets cold, that's fine. But if you take it off and you were planning on keeping it off, and then you change your mind and you put it back on, then osa. Even if you didn't put it on the floor, but you just didn't intend to put it back on, then you've got a problem. Many Rishonim are makel if you didn't have this criteria of daita lahachzir. V'chein mekilim b'daita lahachzir after mentayim masir miyodai. And they're also okay if it's not Oda B'yoda. That criteria, Oda B'yoda, if you didn't fulfill it, they are makel with that. So the first three criteria are essential. 4 and 5, B'shas Hatchak, you can be makel. So again, the three criteria which are essential are gar for cotton. You've got to line your crock pot, or you'll have a blech on. If you want to put it back onto the blech, there's got to be some sort of blech between the gas and between the fire, and the pot. Number 2, it's mavushal kol tzarchei. Number 3, it's oidei. Those three are essential. Criteria daita lahachzir and oidei biyodei, that you should try and keep. But if you didn't, b'shas hatchak, it's okay. It's not fatal.
If you're holding the lid, does that count as holding?
No, it's got to be holding the pot. If you take the lid off, it's got to be holding the pot. I think. Okay, v'dafka al gabo. So we say the dafka putting it back on top of the kira. Hainu al oved defenesel memala. Picture the oven of old. You've got this sort of rectangular type of thing, right? But the contrast is putting it into the oven. Into the oven is mechsek mevashel. Hainu al gab al oved defenesel memala. Oishesom kisu al chalala v'hemid hakeder al kisu. You're sort of placing it on top in some form or shape. V'afilim tola hakeder l'teichavir hakira. Even if you're putting it into the whole of the oven, or ksastafon bolted in some of the pots, sort of, or some of the edges is sort of sticking out. Milmala, when you have a pot which is thinner at the bottom and wider at the top, this is still considered al gaba. It's not called toich. It's only called toich when it's mamish in the actual kira. Then you've got more of a problem. Here you go. Because that's the regular way of cooking. That's the problem. Putting it into an oven on Shabbos, into a hot oven on Shabbos, is a problem. But those ovens which have not got a sort of cavity of some shape, and really therefore you only put it on top of it, if there is a flame in the fire, in the oven, iron besimen shinyut sif tesvov. Okay, of a tanur, which is much hotter, which is like a cone shape, and therefore it's much more intensely hot. Afilu husuk bekasher gvava would be osa. Even if it's a lower level of fuel, it's going to be osa. Vuadin lekupach, which is the single stove oven. Tahalo lehitiru chazara lekulam ele begrufo. They only allow when it's gorf of a tanur of a kupach shehevlem rav, when their heat is very hot. Lo mani grufa v'chudalel besif aleph. V'davka, and we just finish off some base. V'davka shal tavshel koya reisha de omar. Afilu b'shabbos mutzel hachzira. Al gabe kira k'shagder resachas v'lezeh be'er dafka k'shehu mavushel kol tzarchei. Avim minis matshel kol tzarchei shaykh achrov oid bishul v'ayin b'ma shenichtav lekam b'simen shenichesiv ta'alev mishnah b'rasham. Good. And then we said, we're finishing off, afilu lekira achas, afilu im hevel meruba mirshayna. Even if the hevel, the heat is much hotter than the first one, mikom makom lo yavi rak b'chlal chazar v'shari, and that would be okay. Avim hoysa b'tchila t'muna b'dol v'she'ena moisif hevel, which we'll talk about the halachos of Hatmona, Mr. We'll get there in Reish Zayin, in Reish Zayin. Or b'shabbos b'ol ha'hishiv lekira, or l'hepech mekira l'Hatmona osa. V'zeh pulur chadasha, because that's considered a new act, and that's a problem. And you can't do Hatmona on Shabbos. Okay, so what emerges from today is the halachas of Chazara. Again, the context is there's Bishul Deraisa, Bishul Drabonim. Bishul Deraisa means taking something which is liquid from less than Yad Tzededis Boy to more than Yad Tzededis Boy, or even more than Yad Tzededis Boy to a much higher heat. We'll get there in Mitzvah Shem in Shinui Ches. Or a solid, to something less than Meichel Ben Drusoi to more than Meichel Ben Drusoi, or even more, but you're making it better. That's Bishul Deraisa. Bishul Drabonon, there are a few areas. Shehiyah, we spoke about the last few days. That's maintaining a pot on an uncovered flame. That's a problem because Shem Yechata. Now, today, Sif Beis, we're talking about Chazara. That means if you're taking something off the blech or and putting it back on, that's allowed if you've got 5 conditions. Number 1, it's gar for cotton. Number 2, it's Mavushal Kol Tzarchei. Number 3, it's Oidei Cham or Sachas, it's still hot. And those conditions are essential. And the conditions 4 and 5 is Oidei Biyodei and Daita Lahachzeh. You should always hold on to it and intend to put it back. If you forget one of those two conditions, then B'diavad you're okay. Say that?
You mean one hand?
Either one of those conditions, yeah.
The one hand. You don't have to hold it 2 hands.
Yeah, one hand, yeah. But if you forget one of those, yeah, that's right. It's going to be very...
You can't put it down and hold on to it.
You can put it down on the counter. Yeah, exactly.
How do you serve yourself?
No. So you hold on to it though.
Just with one hand, and then
Yeah,
you take.
yeah. In other words, again, you take the chulent off the crock pot.
And carrying.
Yeah, but this.
Sorry, and touching.
Yeah. But what you do again, you take it off the crock pot, you put it down on the counter, holding onto it with one hand, with the other hand there, and then and these are ma'asim b'chol yom in mishpachat Golker.
You're not holding.
You're touching it, you're not holding it.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's okay.
It means
Yeah.
the doctor is
Okay.
not so.
No, what?
What?